Solitary cloud, shadow in the setting sun, and the next line. And the last line would be stirs the drifter's heart. Kazuha, the last living descendant of the Kaedehara clan, the temporary member of the Crux, also known as Beidou Sugar Baby, the Canadian Ether, and most important of all, the Viagra for both the meta and casual players. He brings nothing but orgasms, both in looks and tools. Okay, that's enough sex jokes for the rest of the video. But this character does not unite the opposite side of the community for no reason. So join me along the journey about how this lone wandering man changed the entire world of Genshin Impact for his havers. So now we go to the talents of this young man. He's an anemo character from the Path of the Hunt. Oh sorry, wrong game. His first talent, Garyu Blade Work, is a normal attack. Next, Chihayaburu. This is what makes him shine the most. Chihayaburu sucks the enemy with wind and enables plunge attack. If we swirl some element to the wind, we get 3 stacks of damage. The plunge attack damage, the attack scaling from the first passive, and the swirl damage based on EM. And then the burst attack. Kazuha Slash? That is so fucking creative. Well, I also have my own burst, mind you, the Yuki Balls. And also one of the best passive of the game, which basically turns him into a goblet artifact. Combine that with the Anemo artifact, and we have the most versatile element support in the game. So this is my level 80-90 Kazuha with 800 EM, because I use Sacrificial Sword on him. He swirls some element, and he now has 33% element damage bonus. 33 is a lot of additional damage. He can single-handedly turn my level 69 child without any artifacts into a one-shot machine. Not quite. In other words, he shreds, he sucks, and he makes you not suck at the game. Oh yeah, he also basically turns you into a marathon runner with his passive. And his constellation, C1 is basically Sacrificial Sword, C2 buffs his team EM within the area of his burst, C4 is free energy, and C6 turns him into Xiao with extra damage from his EM. In my most humble opinion, the only worth constellation is C2 and C6 because it changes his gameplay completely, whereas C2 gives him a huge EM buff. C1 is only beneficial if you are not using Sacrificial Sword or probably using main DPS Kazuha, while C4 is trash.
Know your fucking place.
Which brings us to the next question. What is his strength and weakness? So he sucks, which is a really strong CC because it groups smaller enemies and pulling them into Kazuha, and even the big monsters like this fucking insane creature in the spiral beam can be pulled by his hold E. He has an elevation advantage from his E, which is really useful to dodge some enemy attacks with style and Riz. And he's also a really good elemental support. Anything that isn't Geo, Anemo, and Dendro will have a huge increase in total damage if he's in the team. And he can even double swirl, which is really good for reaction comms. And he is a climbing god. You really just need to press X and immediately press E while on climbing to gain extra height and stamina, which is really useful when you're about to run out of stamina while climbing, but just don't climb at a skewed cliff or you'll have to deal with this shit. So about his sucks. While being so good, it is countered by low poise enemies. Rift Hounds and Vishaps can just scatter around after grouping them, which is very frustrating. And also these insane heal churls, they're a menace. He's also vulnerable while doing his E, so just be careful. And it's really possible to swirl wrong element with his burst. For example, if you're running a freeze comp and that random heal churl with a fucking torch runs at you and you get hit and then use burst, you swirl pyro. But that's just swirl mechanics, which I will explain later in this video. So what I'm about to say right now is going to sound gigabrain, but it's actually so simple. Swirl is a reaction which infuses itself into 4 elements: water, fire, ice, and lightning. And Anemo skills usually can only infuse 1 element. So what happens if there's more than 1 element to infuse? There's a priority to this, unlike my priorities in life, which is Pyro, Hydro, Electro, and Cryo. For example, if Kazuha has Hydro on him and enemy has Cryo, the infusion will be Hydro. And yes, Kazuha can infuse element from himself. But elemental infusion works differently with Swirl. You can swirl more than one element, which also activates Anemo Artifact's passive, which is Elemental Shred. For example, if the enemy has Hydro and Pyro, he can swirl both elements, providing buffs and shred from the Viridescent Venera set, which is why he is so strong in Vaporized comps. But it really gets confusing when there's only one enemy, because we only can do swirl to one element. But not to worry, because Kazuha can infuse elements from himself, remember? So here's how it works. We apply Hydro and then we need to vaporize it first, because we cannot get rid of a strong Hydro with Swirl. Well, if you don't know about this, let's just say it's another topic, which is elemental gauge theory, which is even more complicated that learning it is like taking one whole subject on college. So anyways, water, vaporize, and we use Kazuha to swirl Hydro. Now it looks like we've only swirled Hydro, but Pyro Swirl will follow up soon after that. And there you have it, double swirl. It's actually much easier to do it than actually explaining it, so yeah. But if you're still confused after that whole long explanation, just use Electro Charge. You can just go anga banga without thinking about all these mambo jumbos, and before you know it, you already swirled 2 elements. Which is nice. But, and that's a small but actually, he cannot swirl multiple elements on enemies who are constantly imbued with elements like Oceanids, Hypostasis, or just some dudes on the water. Now here's the juiciest part of any guide and the one that has people fight over it, the build section. I'm just gonna say it now. If you're not using Kazuha with 4 set Viridescent Venera, you're either an oxymoron or just a bored Genshin player. Probably the latter. Kazuha support definitely needs a 4 Fifi because the element resistance shred is that overpowered. But he has that meme build potential, being an Anemo character and all. If you think playing Kazuha support is kinda boring, like I do sometimes, you can do a main DPS Kazuha. If you have C6 Benny, you can go Crimson Witch Kazuha, which is a lot of fun. He can also do Dendro reactions like Burgeon, Hyperbloom, and Aggravate, which makes him so flexible and fun to play. Although Hyperbloom Kazuha is kinda difficult, so I probably don't wanna use that. The thing for meme build Kazuha is that they are actually pretty good against multiple enemies, so you can have much fun in multiple wave section of the Abyss. But it falls off if it's against boss enemies, so you might want to switch to support Kazuha for that. You need to prioritize EM stats for Anemo support Kazuha and Bloom reactions. Try to get more energy recharge for fast burst rotation. My comfort zone will be 160% energy recharge. The rest of the meme builds will be Bloom and DPS 1. Just experiment with a lot of meme builds with Kazuha. It's so much fun if you're not in the Spiral Beast floor 12. As for the weapons, his best weapon is definitely Freedom Sworn. But if you want a 4-star replacement, Siphos Moonlight or Sacrificial Sword is your best bet. Siphos Moonlight increases his energy recharge based on EM, but it's limited so you might not have it. So Sacrificial Sword is your second best option. It's like having a C1 Kazuha with this weapon. You can also use Iron Sting for more EM or even Favonius Sword, but I wouldn't recommend it since Kazuha doesn't crit often unless you have a decent crit on him. For reference, this is my Kazuha with 864 EM, 175% energy recharge, and Sacrificial Sword. But if I want to mess around, I use a DPS Kazuha with Light Foliar Incision with Crimson Set for Pyro Kazuha and 4 Fifi for Aggravate, or Flower of Paradise Lost Artifact if I want to use Bloom Kazuha. I know that the most optimal build to play Kazuha is 4 Fifi, but the fact that he can be used for fun stuffs is why he is so awesome. Because that's what we're playing games for, am I right? So after we build our perfect Kazuha, you might realize that this game is a 4-person team game and oh snap, we need more characters to complete his team. But you'll soon realize that he's the one completing your team comp instead. He fits in almost every Pyro, Hydro, Electro, and Cryo team. We're talking about Freeze comp, Vape comp, Melt comp, Electro Charge comp, Burning. Okay, Burning's definitely not the play here. Fridge, Aggravate, and Beams. The rotation will be whatever element your main DPS is and swirl it with Kazuha. I'll give you an example. On Freeze and Fridge team, I would swirl Cryo because the main damage is from Ayaka. On an Electro Charge team, I would go for Electro first, but Kazuha will double swirl anyway, so it's easy. Melt comp, I would swirl Cryo first and then swirl Pyro afterwards, because Pyro is on the higher priority than Cryo. Remember the element priority from the previous section? Oh, one thing, if you run reverse melt, you want Kazuha's burst to infuse Pyro, but on a true melt comp, you want the burst to infuse Cryo because Pyro is stronger than Cryo and Yeah, but there's one more interesting team comp for him, Mono Element. Just slap Kazuha with every Mono Element team, or even make him a Mono Pyro main DPS, and the rotation will be really easy. And add them with 4 Petra, Zhongli or Yunjin, and you'll be in a really relaxed farming team comp. And you might also wanna try a Mono Hydro team comp, and also the Mono Cryo Element team comp. Although you'd probably wanna try a freeze comp instead of a Mono Cryo. But Mono Electro is definitely the best one for me. Just look at that beautiful purple color on your screen. And also don't forget the meme Burgeon team comp. To be honest, you only need to bloom with your Hydro and Dendro off-field support character, and then Bennett Burst, and then just send it with Kazuha. So overall, he's like the special ingredient of any food, which makes it much better. So my final word is that in the end, Kazuha is a 5-star support. In a game where you can still win the endgame content with just 4 stars character, a good support is better than a good DPS. Because, believe me, supports provide much more utilities that makes your main DPS much more fun to play. Kazuha has a lot of utility which makes him so useful both in battles and exploration. That's why he's the best friend for both casual players and endgame players. So if you're still hesitant to pull him, I won't force you to pull for anyone, but if you do pull for him, he will definitely be one of, if not the best addition to your Genshin Impact account. So I hope this video helps you to consider whether you want to pull for him or not, and still be entertaining for you, because we all just want some fun in our life, right? So thank you for watching, and I'll see you later in the next one.